Business is FN hard.
Business is FN hard.
Business is FN hard.
Business is FN hard.
Business is FN hard. On today's episode, meet Joshua Ang Price, owner and chief strategist of Hybrid Strategies.
How much is your cost? How much is your overhead? How much profit are you making? Like, how many did you sell last year? Like, what was your profit? What was your net profit? And those, sometimes they're looking at like, oh, I don't know. So you need to know these things if you're a business owner and you want to scale up or you want to get any type of assistance.
And Rachael Davenport, president and owner of the Footstep Group.
We all have our space that we believe is the right space and the right thing we need to be offering people. And what I've learned this time around is that may not be what people are asking for.
Get ready to get real, because business is FN hard. Welcome back to Business is FN hard, everybody. I am your host, Kinsey Houston, and I'm so glad you're here for another episode where we get real about the challenges, wins, and lessons of entrepreneurship. Today, I am joined by two incredible entrepreneurs who know firsthand what it takes to navigate the ups and downs of running a business. Please welcome Joshua Ang Price, the owner of Hybrid Strategies LLC, and Rachael McCone Davenport, the owner of the Footstep Group. So let's get to know our guests. Joshua, if you could start us off here and tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to start Hybrid Strategies.
Sure, Kinsey. Thanks so much for having me. I was born and raised in rural Southwest Arkansas. I was born in Nashville, Arkansas, and I grew up in Delight, which is like 400 people. Yeah, so my dad we actually grew up in a suburb of Delight. It's funny, called Antoine. And my dad owned the only grocery store and gas station in town, which he had inherited from his father. So, and then my mom is a nurse from the Philippines that was recruited to work in rural America. And her parents were business owners they actually owned a popsicle and ice cream factory, which I think is really smart because it's always hot in the Philippines. So that was like a really good idea because it's not seasonal. But I come from a family of business owners. My background is before I started Hybrid Strategies, I actually worked for the federal government for quite a long time, even during. And I worked for the Delta Regional Authority, which covers 8 states, 10 million people. And they work primarily with economic development, training small business owners, especially women and minority-owned small business owners, using like the arts and creative placemaking to boost the economy of small towns. And so I'm just seeing all this going on. And then I decided that I'm going to start my own consulting firm because I saw so many people, especially women and minority-owned businesses, rural businesses that really didn't know how to start a business. And they were being a lot of times bamboozled. I had one young man one time that reached out to me saying that somebody had charged him $1,500 to start his LLC for him and get him an EIN. And I'm like, you could do that online for free. So I just saw that there was a need for it. And I wanted to be able to take the knowledge I had of the small business world and be able to help people launch and grow their small business. And then I also, so that was 2018 when I launched my consulting firm. And then 2020, 2021, in 2022, I worked for the U.S. Small Business Administration as the public information officer for the state of Arkansas. So then I even knew more about what kind of grants and loans were out there that could benefit small business owners in the state and all across the country. So that's really what fueled, I guess, my passion for small business is just seeing that people were struggling. And just like Rachael, I know she's about to say, if you know how to do this and you other people struggling, you want to be able to share that knowledge and share that information and spread the wealth. So that's why I'm passionate about small business.
Absolutely. That's amazing, Joshua. Like you said, growing up in a family of multiple business owners must have given you such a unique perspective on entrepreneurship in general. And now with you being focused on helping women and minority-owned businesses having access to resources, funding, like you said, giving them the knowledge that they may not know is out there. It's something that I'm really excited to learn more about. So thanks for being here, Joshua. We'll definitely dive into that more in a moment.
Great. Thank you.
And Rachael, your journey has taken you from corporate leadership at Tyson, when we were talking earlier, to launching your own leadership development business twice, actually.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that. What made you take that leap into entrepreneurship and what brought you back?
You bet. When I think back to that moment that I thought this is what I should be doing, I was teaching a class. And one of the things that you in this particular class is you write your personal mission statement, and it takes you through all these different things. of what you want to be, have, do, how you want your family to see you in the future. And when I wrote that down, it was all about I would love to have the flexibility for my family. I want to be able to reach a lot of different people. I want to have freedom to travel, all these different things. And it was at that moment that the next exercise is, so what are your goals to get there? And I started thinking, like, I think I could do this. At that time, I had about, 10, not quite 10 years of experience doing leadership development and talent development. And so started on the path to open my own consulting business. It was a lifestyle I wanted, and it was really just a heartfelt interest too. So in 2013, I launched the Footstep Group, which is an organizational development consulting business. A lot of people don't know what that means. So we handle leadership development, talent development, training, executive coaching, all things people from a talent perspective. So not a lot of traditional HR, but more, I always call it the good side of HR. So all the people stuff. And yes, twice now I've had clients that have said, hey, come and work for us. And that usually, both times it's lasted 2 years. And I thought I need to go back out. So it's, like I said, just something that I'm extremely passionate about, helping a lot of different businesses. What we were just talking about resonates because a lot of times people don't have a me on staff, but they still know that talent development is so important. So it allows me to go in and help people in a quick way. And then, of course, fulfill what I'm looking for from a life perspective.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rachel. It's such a powerful testament to the fact, like we were talking earlier, that entrepreneurship isn't just a career path. It's truly is a part of who you are. And so having that passion and seeing that play out in your work is very inspiring.
Yes. It's been a ride. It's been great.
And so now that we know our guests a little bit better, guys, we'll get into the real talk, the main point of our podcast here. What has been the biggest challenge for each of you lately? Joshua, you mentioned that many small business owners, especially in those rural areas, don't really know about the grants and funding opportunities that are available to them. So my question is, what's the biggest gap that you see right now with that? And how do you help business owners navigate that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I want to say that a lot of these smaller towns, like small business is really the lifeblood of that town. They may be like the main employer for people in town, or like my dad and grandfather's grocery store was like literally the only grocery store and gas station in town. So a lot of people in town really depend on these small businesses, not just to get goods and services, but like maybe for their employment. Like small rural hospitals and things like that don't have a lot of staff, but they may be the main job creator for the town. So the obstacles I see, number one, infrastructure can be a big problem in those towns. Not just physical infrastructure, but also internet. So even let's say if you're a farmer or something, how do you get your goods to market if you have bad roads or like you don't have access to rail? That's something we saw a lot when I worked with the Delta Regional Authority. And then internet too. If you're providing like an online service, but you don't have broadband access or like you don't have reliable internet, that makes it really hard for you. So that's something that maybe you can't do anything about living in a small town, that the government really needs to come in and upgrade that infrastructure. But I think that's a definite problem. Also, just like lack of knowledge of these resources. I would say even myself, I didn't know that all this money was out there. And I'm sure we'll get into it more later, but like at my time at the SBA, like they had literal buckets of money set aside for women-owned businesses, Black, Asian, Hispanic, veterans, people with disabilities, LGBTQ, and people didn't know that the money was there, and the money would just sit in this pot and it would just roll over year after year because nobody would apply for it. So it's just crazy that here's the money, but like you don't know it's there. And then for the people who did find out that it's there, I hate to say that there's like some gatekeeping, but there is. It's almost like if you're not in the know, then you don't know that the money's there. If you don't have a friend or someone you play golf with who's like the vice president of a bank, you're not going to know that there's money out there for you. And I know at SBA Arkansas, we only had 6 staff. So think about 6 staff for the whole state. Like, how do you reach everyone in the state with only 6 people? Mm-hmm. And me being the public information officer, I was getting like 100 phone calls a day. And I was just trying to keep my head above water just during the pandemic, and people were trying to get their PPP funds and all that. So how do you try to explain to folks that there's money out there, and then how do you get it? And then when you do let them know about it, a lot of times there was a capacity issue. So, it's easy for, say, like a Walmart to apply for a PPP loan because they have a team of lawyers and CPAs and all that. But if you're a mom and pop shop, Like, how do you do that? I even asked my dad, I said, hey, if you still had the grocery store, which is called Crisis Gas and Grocery, I said, if you still had the grocery store during the pandemic, would you have been able to apply for a PPP loan? I'm sitting here showing him the documents. And I'm running the store by myself. Like, I'm working 12, 14-hour days. How do I then fill out this ton of paperwork on my own and get it submitted to be able to get the money? I guess so. To answer your question more succinctly, I think obstacles for small businesses is the infrastructure, whether that's physical or broadband, not knowing about the resources. And then if they know about the resources, having the capacity to apply for them and access them.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so true. There's money out there, no doubt about it. But if you don't have a CPA or someone to guide you and walk you through that process, the process can be definitely overwhelming, I think, to people just getting into it and learning about all of those resources applicable.
Absolutely.
And Rachael, you've relaunched your business in a completely different marketing landscape than before.
Yeah.
And how have you adjusted to the shift from word of mouth marketing to digital marketing? And what's been the hardest part of reestablishing your client base?
Yeah. Thank you. Great question. Yes. So it's actually my third time to relaunch, third time to launch. So it doesn't matter. Anyway, yes. And each of the times, the marketing strategies, tools, techniques have really either shifted or advanced. And this time around, it's much more digital, as you mentioned. There is less of a barrier to entry. So there's a lot of people in the space marketing similar services. And you have to figure out, how are you going to differentiate yourself? How are you going to create your brand? And how are you going to put your services out there when maybe 10 others are doing something similar? So it's taken a lot of learning. It has taken some focus, and it really takes time. The word of mouth marketing, the relationship's already built. You typically have some type of wins or experiences with them. So you can literally send a text and say, hey, I'm back out. How can I help you? Do you have other people? So it's much easier than going out and creating a new pool of people that you want to work with. One of the biggest reasons that I did it this time is scale. So I've been very successful doing the word of mouth marketing. I think when you're only dependent on that and expecting business from that, it's also a risky place because you have your core people that you know you're going to work with. But if for some reason a pandemic shows up or business goes down or anything like that, you don't have just these new people that maybe you've never, heard of. You don't have the pipeline going on. That's been the biggest challenge for me this time around, is differentiating myself because I want to scale, and then using the digital tools to do that. And one last thing, finding your ideal client within those digital tools. So you have millions, literally, of people hanging out on Instagram, and you're trying to find them. And then you've got people. Yeah. I could go into a lot of different things there, but it's just a really interesting world right now when it comes to marketing.
Absolutely. And that's such a huge takeaway, Rachael. What worked before isn't always what works now. And keeping up with that changing landscape is just part of the game.
Yes.
Like we said earlier, being patient with progress, not jumping ship too quickly to just try something out for the sake of trying it. And at the same time, knowing your area of expertise while being flexible with that so you can shift to the changing client needs that are out there.
Yes. Just to say one more, I completely agree. We all have our space that we believe is the right space and the right thing we need to be offering people. And what I've learned this time around is that may not be what people are asking for. And so being able to recognize what are people wanting and accommodating and serving in that capacity, when maybe you really want to be doing something in your more comfortable expertise area. It's recognizing what people are asking for.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's where that active listening truly does come into play.
Yes. Yes.
I wanted to add something, if I may, to Rachel's point.
Absolutely.
A couple of things. You're totally right, Rachael. I remember I started my career working for a marketing firm, and I remember one of my bosses said, and I'll never forget this, he said, you could make what you think is like the best dog food, but if dogs don't eat it, then you got to ask the dogs what they want to eat. You can't just make the dog food yourself. And then you're right about just the changing scape of the technology and like how things are moving so fast. I remember just a couple years ago, I had so many clients that were doing advertising through Facebook, and then algorithms totally changed. And like that just wasn't something they could do anymore and scale, and or it was like reaching the wrong audience. So it is tough,
Yeah.
really tough to reach people digitally just because how quickly everything is progressing.
Very true. And it's not, like I said, it's a low barrier to entry. If you have a phone, you can market on these platforms. But each platform has a different audience and a different way that they want messages. So I can't cross post Instagram and LinkedIn because it's two totally different groups. So when you're creating your own content, it's not easy.
It's not. It's a lot.
Trial and error. And
then different sizes of different graphics. It's a lot.
It was just going to say, it truly is trial and error, knowing the different sizes, knowing the LinkedIn banner size versus what your Facebook cover photo size should be. Those tiny details do come into play. I will say something, at least for me, what's worked for me with thinking about the different kind of platforms, not wanting to post the same exact content on each platform, because you have the platforms. If somebody's checking out your page, hopefully they can go to Instagram and see a certain carousels, graphics, different kind of things that pertain to your brand, but then they can head over to YouTube for maybe some educational videos, quick reels, and things like that. And being able to differentiate yourself and your brand on those platforms and truly utilizing like the new software that's out there, not using ChatGPT to create your captions. I think it's very obvious to see what captions out there are generated by ChatGPT, but instead utilizing ChatGPT as a resource to say, here's a bit about my brand. Here's the platforms that I want to be posting on for social media. Can you help me generate some content ideas across platforms? Boom. It's going to give you a baseline of ideas that you can then run with, bring in your authenticity, and truly, like we said, see what works, see what doesn't.
yeah. And I'd love to hear what Joshua says. I think AI is a tool to use without a doubt. I think you are spot on. It's the whole what you put in is what you get out. And if you don't have a knowledge base where you can write the right prompts and put in information enough to get credible information, then it's going to look very wordy and
full of jargon.
Yes. But it speeds up so much. If you know what you want to say, but you need those words, it can really help a lot of different ways. It's mind blowing actually.
I didn't know we were going to talk about AI, but like, I totally agree. Like I use AI all the time, but again, as you're saying, I use it. So I see AI as like my college intern. I'm like, give me the first draft.
Right.
It's not the final draft. It's just the first draft. And then I can fine tune it and say, okay, this is great, but add this and this, or shorten it, and then after maybe 10 drafts, you have the final draft. And it's just, like you said, Rachel, I've noticed like the more I input, like the better of a product. Mm-hmm. If I keep it vague, I get a generic answer. But I think AI is a great tool, not just for marketing, but even for writing some of these grants and like loans that are so wordy. Because if you can then you can say, hey, AI, answer this question that's on this application.
So the less time you spend on things like what we're talking about now, the more time you're actually selling or working or making money. And I think that's a huge part and a huge learning with any entrepreneur is, where am I spending my time and is it actually generating cash for me? Because stuff like you can feel like you did a lot of work today and you made no money. Recognizing AI is a great tool for stuff like that can speed you up and get you talking to clients instead.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. I think scale becomes an issue, right? How do I scale up? I know so many small business owners that maybe they have a wonderful product or service and they get bogged down like with the admin stuff. Like you were saying, they're spending all their time like making Facebook posts or like doing their social media or like doing admin stuff. And even before AI, some of the small businesses I would do consulting for, I was like, hey, there's something cool called Canva and you could go ahead and make your templates. And then you could just plug stuff in, or you could use QuickBooks. Like you don't have to use like that old fashioned paper and ledger. There's ways that you can speed up or automate the process so that you're not spending, like you said, spending a lot of time doing the the back end stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think people know when you run a small business, there's so much like back end stuff, like invoicing. God, Rachel, I bet you want to talk invoicing takes up so much time. Like just putting together invoices, sending them to the clients, like following up. That right there takes up so much time.
Oh my gosh. And because of invoicing, I have said, I wish I could do this for free. I hate invoicing that much. Like I did that much. Yes. There are time bandits out there and you can get stuck in them, especially when business gets hard because you don't want to feel like you're not working on your business. And when I've coached leaders, there is working on it, there's working in it, and working in it in your business is the invoices and those type on it is I'm going out there, growing it, making money. And so you can trick yourself at times that because I had a busy day with the back end.
And I think for a non-business owners, they don't realize, yes, there's flexibility. We may be working all day with clients and then we're working late into the wee hours of the morning doing the back end stuff. Like I'm putting together invoices at 2 a.m. because I didn't have time to do it all day. But I actually had, this wasn't a client per se, but a nonprofit I'm on the board of, and I was just helping them. But they were still trying to, they were trying to get some sponsorships and things, and they were still doing like checks. And I said, you can make like a PayPal and you can generate your own invoice and just send it to them and it'll just do it on its own. And that was a game changer for them because they had been doing it just so old school of, well, let me call you up. Let me now send you like an invoice in the mail or via email. And then let me wait to get the check back. And I'm like, you can just do that through PayPal and get your money like right away. So I think we talked about technology helping these small businesses. I think there's a lot of programs and resources out there. And one thing I did want to mention, not just about funding, but resources. So like when I worked at SBA, we had what we called resource partners. And one of them was SCORE, and they had mentors. Like they had very experienced business owners that like maybe semi-retired, but they just wanted to give back. And they would mentor young business owners like in their 20s and 30s. And then we had the ASBTDC, which is the Arkansas Small Business Technology Development Center. And they also provide technical assistance. Like you can go to them and they'll help you with, and you just email them, like you can do it all virtually, but they'll help you with your business plan, like putting together a budget. And they do that all for free. That's all free technical assistance because they're getting SBA funding. Like I said, we only had 6 people on staff, so we couldn't do all this, but we had our resource partners that you could reach out to, and then they could help you through mentorships and through this technical assistance. So that's another thing that people don't know that's available out there. But like literally, if you go to sba.gov/resource partners, you can search by zip code and you can find all resource partners in your area that can provide that free assistance.
That's awesome. Because most of us are like, I'm starting a business and we don't have a clue what we don't know. Yeah. Entrepreneurs aren't about the details, by the way, usually.
Yeah. I think sometimes your business owners, entrepreneurs are so passionate about whatever they're selling and they're more focused on that, but there's so much money out there and there's so much assistance. And I'm sure you've worked with business owners like this, Rachel, but I've seen ones that like, okay, so where's your business plan? Oh, I don't have one. Okay, where's your budget? I don't have one. We've all seen Shark Tank where the questions the shark's going to ask you, right?
Yes.
How much is your cost? How much is your overhead? How much profit are you making? Like how much did you sell last year? What was your profit? What was your net profit? And sometimes they're looking at, I don't know. So you need to know these things if you're a business owner and you want to scale up or you want to get any type of assistance. But these SBA resource partners, like I mentioned, they really can help with that. They can help put all that together for you. So that's a great resource.
That's awesome.
That is odd. And that's what it's all about. And I think in the world of entrepreneurship is staying adaptable. That's a big part of it, but also knowing and recognizing that just because you are an entrepreneur, it's not a solo sport. There's nothing wrong with reaching out, asking for help, using whether it's ChatGPT or Jasper AI as like a sounding board to get some ideas, reaching out through your community and seeing the different resources that are available to help you get started and jumpstart your business. That's I think the most important takeaway, at least for me, from this episode. That is great.
And I will just add that I have clearly seen a change and a shift in support from other people. And maybe it's the accessibility. In the past, you had to go to maybe an actual resource group where you sat together or you networked or you had to pay money for a professional society and now because so many people can access entrepreneurship, there's a lot of people out there just so willing to help. And so that's been awesome. It's just finding forums or finding people online that are so just because we're all striving to do this great, awesome thing we have passion about. And I've been blown away. It's not a cutthroat competition type of feel at all. It's here's what's worked for me. And I'm glad for you to borrow it or do whatever.
Exactly. And just like you said, here's what worked for me, but also, hey, here's what didn't work for me. And it could work out for other people, but knowing, hey, this is what's working right in my business, in my industry, this didn't work out so well. I don't think we're going to go this route. Those kind of conversations do nothing but add value to your business plan and the relationships I think that you surround yourself with around that.
Yeah. It's really challenged this whole idea of authenticity this time around because I've seen people that something worked, and I'll give you a very real example. So there is a person online that has like 1 million followers that does exactly what I do. And she's got this really strong business persona. So she's always dressed in black. Her hair is slicked back and she's in this office setting. And I was like, I'm going to do that because it's working for her. I think I tried it one time. Like, this is not me. So the other key part of being an entrepreneur is just maintaining that authenticity because it'll shine through if you're not.
Absolutely.
And I do have a couple of cringy reels out there where I try to be somebody else. But yeah, that's another thing I would say. It just based on what you're saying, like, yes, figure out what other people are doing and then modify it for you to be your authentic self.
Absolutely. Because when it does feel unnatural to you in that regard, other people can see it too. And at the end of the day, I think that's what we all want as customers ourselves. And we don't want what worked best for Google or Amazon. I don't want you to just replicate something. I want to know that I matter as a customer and that you are your own unique brand. I think it boils down to it for, I think,
Really
every out there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Rachel. Like I was saying, I work with a lot of rural business owners, women, minorities. And I think sometimes if you're part of one of those groups, there's like a chip on your shoulder entering the business world or corporate America thinking I have to act a certain way or talk a certain way or dress a certain way. But I'm just like, just be yourself because people are going to remember you for, like you said, for your authenticity. That's what's going to stand out. Like those generic, like in a black suit is like a dime a dozen, right? But if you're showing, like you said, letting your real self shine through, that's what people are going to remember. That's what's going to catch their attention. And they're going to then have that relationship with you and they're going to want to do business with you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Spot on.
Before we wrap up, guys, but I'm going to take a little bit more of your time if you don't mind. I'd want to talk about what's next, what's ahead for both of you guys. So, Joshua, what is next for Hybrid Strategies and where can our audience connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm actually working on a pretty big project. I don't know if I can talk about it yet, but it's an economic development project in Little Rock that we're actually going to be building like a sports arena that's also going to have some community spaces, classes for kids and after school programs and things like that. I'm really excited about that. It's a Black and woman owned business that they started 5 years ago and they've just grown to the point where they need to build like a community space that's going to have a 2,000 seat arena and like basketball courts and sports courts and things like that. It's a big project. It's probably one of the biggest ones I've worked on, but it's so exciting to see the small business owners that I've known for 5 years now. I remember going to a pitch competition and I was one of the judges and they won the pitch competition and they got like $1,000. And like now they're trying to build like a multi-million-dollar project. So I'm so proud of them, like watching them scale to the point where they are now and to be able to help them in their endeavors by providing them with some of that strategic consulting that they're going to need moving forward. So that's something that I'm working on that's taking up a lot of time, but I'm really excited about not just for them, but like for the impact that it's going to bring to the community, not just in Little Rock, but across the whole state or even like the region, because it's something people could come and visit from other states as well. So that's something I'm really excited about.
Absolutely. Man, that is awesome. Joshua, thank you. I know you said you weren't sure how much you could talk about it. I'm super excited and I don't even live in Arkansas. Like that is really cool. And I'm sure it's a great feeling for you to be able to, like you said, see it come from an idea to really come through to fruition. And it's becoming, I think, bigger. It sounds like bigger than what anybody initially was expecting. So that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just a great example of just sticking with your business and just keep scaling up, and look what you can do. You never know. Sky's the limit, right?
Absolutely. Keep scaling up and keep staying you. Absolutely. Thank you, Joshua.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a final shout out. If anyone needs any help finding these resources or grants or loans that are out there, they are welcome to email me. My email is just my name. It's joshua.ong.price@gmail.com. Feel free to email me, and then check out sba.gov. There's all kinds of resources out there. There's resources for minorities, women. If your business has been hit by a natural disaster, there's money out there. If you're an export business, there's $50,000 microloans, there's 7A loans, there's 504 loans, there's government contracts. There's all kinds of opportunities, and I am happy to help any businesses navigate that confusing process. So feel free to reach out to me again, joshua.ong.price@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joshua. Yeah, don't be afraid to reach out to Joshua. Reach out to us if you have any questions. Joshua, I very well may be reaching out to you myself.
Please
Give
do.
us resources and information. And yeah, I really appreciate it. And Rachael, could you tell us what's next for the Footstep Group and where listeners can reach out to you?
Thank you. In the past, I have done more traditional consulting, project-based type of consulting or retainer-based type of consulting, and I still offer that. So if you go onto footstepgroup.com, you will see a wide variety of consulting services. Where I am passionate now, and Joshua, you really nailed it, is I think there are so many women that are wanting to be successful in the workplace, whether that is on their own business or in the corporate area, and they are striving to be themselves while sitting at the leadership table. So they want to be authentic, they want to command a seat at the table, but they don't want to sacrifice the other priorities in their life. So that is my new, really niche and offering, which is RachelDavenportCoaching.com. Also, Rachael Davenport Coaching on Instagram. And I'm really focused on exactly that, growing women leaders to really have a presence at the table while they're being themselves. So not the trying to fit in or be what in male-dominated industries, there's still a lot of them out there. And I don't think there's ill intent when you're the only woman at the table, but there's just some nuances. And how do you do that? I've been there for the last 20 years. And so coaching women to do that is my new real place in the world, I think.
I love it. Thank you so much, Rachael. And thank you, Joshua. What an episode that we've had today. Both Joshua and Rachael both had a lot of insight, a lot of different actionable advice for you guys. I'll be watching this episode back. Be sure if you have someone out there, if you're listening today, if you know somebody who could benefit from this podcast episode, share it with them as well. And thank you guys just in general for tuning in to another episode of Business is Effing Hard. Jerowell will be working on editing this final video for us. So he will be sure to get this worked on and probably uploaded within the week. So if you didn't watch it today, we'll see you then. To our listeners, I might have said this already, but if not, please be sure to reach out to both Rachael and Joshua after this episode. We've got some great insights from them today, but I know they've got a lot more to share with you guys. So thank you both so much. We'll go ahead and wrap it up for today. Remember, business is tough, but you don't have to do it alone. So keep pushing forward, stay adaptable, and we will see you next time on Business is Effing Hard. That's all I've got. I'll get out of your hair.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rob. All right, see ya.